let's bring in Mary Kay and ask her that exact question. This interview with Mary Kay Cabot of the Cleveland Plain Dealer is brought to us by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out all the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to join today. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. How you doing today, Mary Kay?
Oh, we can't hear Mary Kay.
Hold on, Mary Kay. We're getting no audio from Mary Kay. Mary Kay, mind refreshing the link and try logging it again. That's on us.
Yeah, listen, Mary Kay was listening backstage. What happened? She was so excited.
Yeah, she
knocked out her microphone. She was like, finally, somebody is on what I'm on today. Jameis Winston and preached to all of us, bro.
Famous Jameis.
The Lord is good.
All right, we'll bring Mary Kay in a second.
Bring her back 1 sec.
All right. And then we're
going
to have...
And we got Mary
We got her?
I see audio levels. Let's test it out. What's up, Mary Kay?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you now.
Hey, we talking about it, Mary Kay. Juan Thornhill. We did the schedule game. I was looking down the schedule.
He said they're the favorites to win the AFC North.
They're the favorites right now. Listen, hey, they're not 2-6. It looked bad. But when you get 334 yards from Jameis Winston against the Baltimore Ravens and you see game-winning touchdowns, Juan Thornhill is feeling like, hey, I'm looking down the schedule. We got a lot of AFC. Everything, like coaches say, everything is in front of us, Mary Kay.
Well, it was kind of fun to hear him talk about that stuff yesterday. I wrote about it because it's certainly a lot better than studying NFL quarterbacks in the draft right now.
Yes, it is.
For those guys to be talking like that, why not? Why not have a little bit of fun in the 24 hours after a big victory like that? It certainly beats the mood in the previous 5 weeks. So if they want to feel like that and they want to talk like that, then have at it, because why not? It gives Browns fans something to think about, something to get excited about. Now, the story that I wrote yesterday with Juan Thornhill, I pointed out that 3 teams have made the playoffs in the NFL after starting 2-6, and that's the 70 Bengals, the 20 Commanders, the 2022 Jaguars. So there is recent history of it happening. And then last year, the Rams at 3-6 made the playoffs. So if they can go out and beat the Chargers this week, then I think that gives even a little bit more credence to them kind of talking like this a little bit.
Didn't the 20 Commanders team make it at like 8-9 though, Mary Kay?
I think it was they won 7 games, and they won the division with 7 games that year.
That's terrible.
So,
The Browns have
the
to
only
go
way
a minimum of 7-2 to make the playoffs. They got to win at least 9 games.
Yes, unless some teams fall apart in the AFC North and don't win anymore, but that's not going to happen. The Steelers are already obviously at 6-2. So in order to get into the playoffs, you're going to be having to look at a wild card, and you would need at least 9 victories for that.
Mary Kay, this was a different, obviously Jameis was the quarterback, but there was also a different play caller with Kevin Stefanski on the side, not having to do the play calling. What did you see differently from him? How did you think he managed the game?
Well, I actually think that this was the kind of game that Kevin would have called pretty much the same way for Jameis Winston. So I don't think we necessarily learned a whole bunch in terms of the play calling situation for a quarterback like Jameis and for an offense like that. I think where we would have possibly seen the difference is if Ken Dorsey had called plays for Deshaun Watson. That's where we would have seen, oh, hey, maybe he has a better handle on the spread and the RPOs and some of these things that he has called throughout his career. So this particular game, I thought Ken Dorsey did a really, really nice job with it, but it didn't look that much different to me than a Kevin Stefanski, Joe Flacco offense.
I agree. Do you think he continues to call for the rest of the season? Or you think that was just for this one-off? There was a one-off.
No, Kevin told us last week it is for the rest of the season. So they're giving Ken this nice tryout to see how it goes. And he might even have an opportunity to call more of a dual threat, sort of spready RPO type of game if Dorian Thompson-Robinson gets back in there for whatever reason. So we still might get some evidence, some data on there on how Ken would do in that regard. But again, in this situation, I didn't see much of a difference between him and Kevin.
Mary Kay, I agree with you there. I'm convinced that 90% of the difference was, maybe more, was just the change at quarterback. And the most noticeable thing, and you saw this with Flacco, but for me it just really came into full view, seeing it again with another veteran quarterback in Jameis, is that Flacco and Jameis throw the ball downfield unafraid of interceptions. Almost, I don't want to say not caring about interceptions, but unafraid. They're throwing it down the field, and if there is an interception, so be it, I'll make up for it next time. Whereas Deshaun, it felt like, was afraid to get intercepted, was afraid to take a chance to throw with anticipation, because if you throw with anticipation or try to throw somebody open, it could get picked off, more easily. Did you notice that as well?
Well, let me just say that were some things in this game that I thought it made it a lot easier to go downfield. First of all, you are working against the 32nd ranked pass defense in the NFL in this game. And so the game plan was to hit those explosive shots. And then you take Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins, they're two of their very best cornerbacks off the field. You for sure are going to be going downfield and trying to hit those big plays. They just are a horrible pass defense right now. So I think Jameis had a really, really good game, and we don't want to take anything away from him for that. But he did have 3 interceptions dropped, and that probably would have changed the game plan a little bit if the first one had been caught, if the second one had been caught. He also had some things going for him in this game that I think were very helpful for him. He had a really good, healthy offensive line that kept him upright, kept him protected, and gave him the opportunity to throw the ball downfield, because obviously it takes time. So he had great protection. It was the 7th version of an offensive line, but the best one that they've had out there so far. If you're going to be working with Nick Harris and Zach Zinter and James Hudson, and you're going to be having Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen coming at you, things are going to be a little bit different than what Jameis had to face yesterday with basically no pass rush and the best offensive line combination that they've had all season long. Then he also had a healthy David Njoku. Finally, David coming off the high ankle sprain, getting healthy. You're seeing David come back into form. He hasn't been that way. He was on a pitch count. He was hurting. So David back helps tremendously. And then Nick Chubb having a running game. Having Nick Chubb out there running the ball, being better than he has been even in his first start, was helpful. So these were all things that I think contributed to a really, really nice game by Jameis. Again, don't take anything away from him. It was a fantastic start for him. Let's see how it goes moving forward.
Speaking of moving forward, let me ask you, if Jameis does play well, and let's say DeJuan Jones does look really well for the left tackle spot, do you think with Denzel Ward having his 6th concussion that maybe in the draft they look to go with the corner more so than a quarterback?
I think they're going to have to look at the quarterbacks if you end up with a high pick. Now, of course, if Jameis is going to go out and the Browns are going to start to win games, the defense is starting to play a lot better. Now the offense is starting to come together for all of those reasons I just mentioned, including, and not the least of which, is a healthy offensive line. So if they start to win a few more games, then you're starting to drop in the draft, and it's going to be potentially harder to get the quarterback that you might want out of this draft if you do want one out of this draft. So they'll have to see how that goes. But I think Jameis could possibly play himself into a situation where he's competing for a job next year, or he's stepping in and starting in place of a rookie that you just drafted. So I think it really will give you a lot of good information if he can go throughout this season and continue to play really well. But I would still be looking quarterback if you have a high enough pick and you like one there.
No way that they make the same mistake that they did with Joe Flacco, letting Jameis go too, right, after this season, if he does play well?
Well, I think he will be making a very strong case for himself to stick around. And it's nice to see him have that kind of success. I think he deserves it. He's done a nice job since he left Tampa, really. And I think he's changed his game. Now, I don't know if we would be having the exact same conversation had Kyle Hamilton hung on to a pass that he absolutely should have caught. I thought the Ravens played their by far worst game of the season and one of the worst games that I can remember them ever playing in recent history, especially against the Cleveland Browns. So, again, let's temper the enthusiasm just a little bit, see if it's something to build on, see what it looks like going forward. But we know why they didn't bring Joe Flacco back. They didn't bring Joe Flacco back because you could not have had Joe on the roster with Deshaun here, with the way everyone feels about Deshaun. So that was a big part of that.
Let's extrapolate this forward, Mary Kay. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, with the contract, he's probably going to be back on his roster next year with the rehab process that goes along. And I know this is a long way down the line, right? If you consider Jameis Winston, it's one game, but if Jameis Winston does play pretty well, do you think that the organization, when Deshaun does come back, it'll probably be sometime in the middle of the season, do you think they still view him as the starting quarterback, or is it something that'll play itself out over the offseason and through OTAs, giving his health, way Jameis Winston plays, and the way the season unfolds?
Yeah, I think it needs to play out. I really think that it needs to play out. As you mentioned, there are contract considerations, and people have said to me, well, they have to pay him that money anyways. Why do they care? Just let him go, get him out of here, and they have to pay him that money. But it's not just that. It's cap charge considerations that a lot of people don't really quite understand how it goes. If they were to trade or release him before June 1st, then you're looking at a $172 million cap charge for next year, which is absolutely untenable. You really couldn't do that. And then it's still 120 as a post-June 1st designation, which is still way too much. So there is a world, I guess, in which Deshaun Watson will still count against the cap next season. I don't necessarily know if that means he'll be around or if he'll be around as a backup or the third string guy, or you bring him in and just say, hey, just continue to rehab, or let him continue to rehab somewhere else, maybe out in LA or wherever. But I do think that they have to find another starting quarterback for the beginning of the 2025 season, whether he's on this roster, whether he's a rookie, whether he's someone that you get in a trade or free agency. I think that's how they have to play it. And maybe you have to leave Deshaun on the roster because of the cap, at least through next season, and maybe you could do something about it the season after that. But once again, physically doesn't mean he'll be here playing or starting any games for them.
Mary Kay, thanks as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Mary Kay.